Welcome to another edition of Yorkshire Kris Weekly. It's a very mild day today, and lots of rain and sunshine. Really mixed weather day, but it's very mild. The week we've just had has been a typical late autumn week. We've had lots of cold, damp, dull, drizzly weather. Not the sort of weather you want to be outside in. But we are expecting a pretty cold night up north on Monday night into Tuesday. And all the bedding plants, as you've shown over the last few episodes, have died back now. The frost hit the leaves a few weeks ago. I'm just slowly going around the garden and I'm just cutting back all the summer bedding and herbaceous plants. So here we have the Zygomeris, and cutting this back to ground, and I'm going to mulch this for winter. So coming up in today's episode, I'm going to be protecting my Cycas revoluta for winter. I'm going to be cutting back all the dead material and protecting the dahlias, the cannas, the colocasias, the begonias, and all other plants that are tuberous or rhizomatous in the ground with straw. And I'll also be protecting some of the arid plants with more protection. Right, we're into December now, and this Cycas revoluta cycad, although pretty hardy, does need some protection to stop the leaves going yellow and dying over winter with the cold weather. This specimen here has got a good 40 centimetre trunk now, or cordex, and it's got some pups around the side, and these all need to be protected, the crown and the leaves. So I'm going to use a lot of fleece and other insulating materials just to hopefully see it through the winter. It is grown in pretty free draining topsoil, so the roots should be fine. In fact, if I try to move it, it's pretty firm in the ground there. It's been in a few years now, it's got through a few winters. So it's basically getting some fleece, putting some into the centre, trying not to damage the leaves, and really packing that in there. So starting with some small pieces of fleece. And carrying on going. And then we've got to try and get these leaves together. You can use rope and string or just another piece of fleece. I'm just tying this in a knot at the back here, giving that a good pull, nice and tight. Then that allows me to get more fleece. These are fleece bags, you can use any fleece. I've just got a big one collection for the last 10 years of doing this. Again, get that round, tie a knot round it. It doesn't take long, this at all, and it's worth the effort of doing this so that we can grow these plants outdoors in the north of England. So that's a lot of the leaves protected now. If you look further down, we've got these pups at the side here, and we've also got obviously the trunk itself and the lowest part that needs protecting. So now I'm going to protect the lower part again, just getting the fleece, pulling that round, getting the pups in there as well, tying a knot round, like so, pulling that tight, and that will keep that part nicely insulated. And I'll continue doing that until it's fully covered, and then I'll put a fleece bag right over the top. So now I've wrapped it around loads and loads with the fleece bags, and also this is just some old material I had from at the back of the garden when I was doing a windbreak. This is just like a nylon synthetic material that won't rot or hold lots of water like the fleece. It'll give it added protection. And it's gone around there, so I just need to top that off now with a great big heavy duty fleece bag. This one has got a great big snail in it, so we don't want that. So if we just pop this over the top like so. It's got a drawstring, so I can tie and pull that down. It's an old fleece bag this, so it's not in the best condition, but it'll do for another winter. So that's another layer of protection over the top, and then finally I shall get a rubble bag, and I'll put this rubble bag over the top to stop the water getting in. Yeah, there's nothing in that. Now that's it. I mean, I'm not going to pretend that this looks good, because obviously it doesn't, but it's at the back of the garden, so nobody's going to see it apart from me and anybody watching these videos until next spring when I take it all off. Now you might be thinking, is the cycas going to be okay for a few months with this sort of protection? Well, funny enough, they don't seem to mind. Palm trees would probably suffer from fungal infections and rot if you wrapped it up this much for months on end in this sort of mildish wet with some freezing periods climate that we have up here in Yorkshire. It's not completely dry and cold where it would be okay for palms to be covered for months. But in terms of Cycas revoluta, they seem to be quite tolerant of this. And worst comes to worst, it'll lose its leaves if you have a really bad winter, but the actual trunk and the plant itself will be alive and will flush new leaves next year. But fingers crossed we don't get a too harsh a winter, and I'll remove all this covering next spring, and we'll have a nice green Cycas revoluta ready for the next season. So now that we've wrapped up the Cycas revoluta, I've also cleared away all the bedding foliage from around this area. So the dahlias have cut back all the foliage there, just to little stumps just poking out. Obviously the hardy plants have left untouched, like the bamboos in the bedding area there. And then these little pinky stalks you can see, they're the remains of the colocasia pink china. So I've cut back the damaged leaves, so just got the stalks, and now I'm going to cover the whole area with straw. And what I've got to be careful of this time is, because I've installed the irrigation, we have these pipes and we've also got the sprinklers, like this mini sprinkler here, so I've got to be really careful that I don't damage these when I put in the protection over the top. Right, it's time to get some straw and put it over this area. So here we have a bale of straw. This is barley straw rather than wheat straw. I chose this mainly because it's a little bit less likely to rot quickly, so it'll last throughout the winter. And you definitely don't want to use hay, because you'll get loads of grass seed popping up next spring, so I'll definitely use straw, and it's better insulator anyway. And This bale just cost me £1.50. Normal bales cost about £3, but this one's a little bit damaged, so I got it for half price. So it's a very cheap way to insulate and mulch plants in the ground, and also we'll be using the straw to protect the tree ferns and the bananas as well. So all I do is get some of the bale of straw, divide it into a section like this. It's nice and dry. And we just pack this around the plants we're trying to protect, which in this case are mainly the Colocasia pink chinas, which are pretty hardy, but they do benefit from some protection. And I'm being careful not to damage my mini sprinklers and irrigation system here. So pack that nice and tight around the plants. Good thick layer all over, and then we'll move on to the next stage, which is keeping this dry. So I'll just continue packing this in until we've covered the whole area. And carry on putting this straw, breaking it up, going around the plants like so. It does create a bit of mess, but I'll quickly break down in spring once I've brushed it into the soil and add nutrients to the ground. Obviously most of it will be either composted or recycled. So now this is covered completely in a really thick layer of straw. So you need to try to keep this pretty dry over winter, and you can use anything. Use plywood or plastic sheeting. I've got these old greenhouse polycarbonate sheets I'm just going to drop over like so and line up and just keep the worst of the weather off the plants here. So just step back, you can see that, and then I'll just weigh it down with a few bricks, and that's job done until next spring. Now here's another aloe polyphila that I planted out this summer. Much smaller plant than my older plant by the Jabea, but this smaller one is grown in general topsoil, but it's got the advantage of being in full sun, and it's just under the eaves of the jungle hut, so it remains pretty dry. But I do want to keep it drier over winter, and all I'm going to do to protect it is get an old plastic box and place that over the top like so, and that's job done. Put a brick on top to weigh it down. I want some ventilation around it so there's air can get all the way around the sides, but it'll stop the rain and the snow going on that. And that's it, nice and easy protection. Now something else I always use straw for each year is to protect the crowns of my tree ferns. And tree ferns so far are still looking absolutely pristine condition with beautiful deep green leaves, no frost damage whatsoever. But it does mean inside we've got the next year's leaves in the centre, the knuckles as we call them, which are still green. I can feel them there, probably can't see them, but there are lots of knuckles there. And I'm just going to put straw in the centre, push that down. That's all the protection the tree fern needs unless it gets a lot colder. So I'll go around and do the rest of them like that now. Well, I've got a lot of jobs done in this week's edition. Join me next week where I'll be putting more plants to bed for winter.